Hey Faith Family, welcome to the Beyond Sunday podcast at Calvary Bible, where we go beyond the Sunday sermon to explore some rabbit holes and to bring some biblical truths to the surface. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Calvary Bible Church, welcome back to another episode of Beyond Sunday. Advent editions.
That's true. Yeah.
I disappointed everybody last week.
Oh,
You know that?
I'm sorry.
Because we didn't have a joke.
I know. I heard, no, I guess I didn't hear from anybody.
No.
People should have flooded my inbox with, I'm so glad for you. There were no jokes.
No.
But I got none.
But I'm
none of
ready
that.
this week. And you know what? We read a very unique psalm this week. It's a imprecatory psalm. I've also seen it categorized as a psalm of disorientation. It doesn't hit our ears quite right. But the last verse talks about babies or little ones. So I have a baby joke for you today. You ready for this one?
I'm ready as ever.
How do you put a baby astronaut to sleep?
How do you put a baby astronaut to sleep? Rockabye baby, lullaby. I don't know.
You were close with the rocking.
I don't know.
You rock it.
Oh, that was close.
There you go. Okay. You can use that one.
Oh boy. No, I
You
can't.
could
Trust me,
remember it.
I cannot.
You won't remember it.
I will not.
I'll ask you
No,
next week.
I do not have that in my files. I don't have a joke file
No.
at all.
You have other files.
I don't.
Let's get into this psalm. It was a different one. And what I want to do here for this little podcast episode is talk about imprecatory psalms for a moment, and then talk about the Christmas season and some of the kind of the traps we can fall into. And I'll lay that out for you too, just personally, where you find yourself. So we were just chatting before we started recording here about imprecatory psalms and how they're unique. And you've done some study and research and whatnot on it. But I thought it'd be good for the folks to hear why the imprecatory psalms are still our prayers, our songs, and they shouldn't be discarded because they don't jive with 21st century culture.
Yeah, I'm going to do some of that. I think the probably we could start with what you helped us with on Sunday, and that is the whole thought of exile. So one of the reasons why I believe that prayers like this are still the prayers of God's people is because we are in exile. And so the psalm I'm studying for this coming Sunday, we'll do another psalm.
Okay.
It'll flip the emotion of it. Joy to the world is the focus, whereas we were in the angst of, O come, Emmanuel, but now joy to the world will be Sunday. So Psalm 98, with that emotion, a lot of the talk about when were these psalms written and who were they written for. Some of the victory in the psalms could be the victory of getting out of exile, let's say out of Babylon, and that's pertinent to this, by the waters of Babylon, verse 1 of Psalm 137 that you preached for us on Sunday. So the exile, the condition of exile and the terrible conditions sometimes in exile are one of the reasons why this prayer is still valid. I'll follow that up quickly with we are still waiting for redemption, complete redemption. Peter refers to us as elect exiles. So we're still in situations where we are asking God. To set us free or to make things right or to bring justice to us again, something like that. So that would be one place to start.
Yeah. So like in 2024 and for years, decades, if not more, there has been thoughts about we shouldn't be praying these psalms. We shouldn't be singing songs like this because it doesn't align with the God of the New Testament, or it doesn't fit God's character. How strong of a movement is, like, I'm thinking for us beyond Sunday, what's the danger of us reading a psalm like this, whether at Calvary Bible Church or
sure.
across the American church, and saying, give me Psalm 23, but strike Psalm 137.
Yeah, the danger for us is that we reach the place where we say that the judgment of God is no longer makes sense to us. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, any judgment texts, we're going to not read them. Remember, it ultimately comes down to, do we allow the scripture to stand as a word from God, or do we judge it and we say that we will only read the sections that make sense to us? Obviously, if you go in that direction, then human beings become the authority on what God says and what God doesn't say. So I think that would be one of the extreme things, would be to think through, my goodness, can you imagine churches that slowly but surely believe that any of these extreme judgment texts can't be, which ultimately means that more and more people who read the Bible are going to read it and see it as what would be the term where everyone's going to be saved in the end, universalism or something like that. So you can see that why that particular reading, why universalism, that everyone in the end will be saved. You can see why that's attractive.
For sure. Because
we have a hard time with Psalm 137, especially at the end with that extreme language about, we hope these kids get killed, these, of our tormentors. We hope their children are killed. So, that'd be one thing, kind of an extreme thing to watch out for as we start to do away with any of the words of judgment.
Yeah, and you said it well. It's like we put ourselves in the authority over the Bible as opposed to allowing the Bible to be the authority for us, and those things get kind of turned on their heads.
Yeah, and again, you guys remember that everyone is great with focusing on the love of God as a character trait. That's his dominant character trait. So that rules all of these texts, which is one of the simplistic ways in which it's argued to say that what we want to do is we want to pay attention to Jesus, not the God of the Old Testament. So you can see people pitting Jesus against God even, which is such a difficult. It's not the way we read the Bible, because we believe in the unity of the Trinity. So we're not pitting Jesus against God. And so, I could do that quickly, which we were maybe discussing earlier. It's like, so when Jesus teaches us how to pray, remember he says, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, your kingdom come. If that's our desire, then judgment will occur.
Yeah.
So on anyone who opposes the arrival of the King will be destroyed. We know that from the New Testament. So we know that from the Gospels, like Matthew 24, if I get that right. And then also we know it from the end of the story from Revelation as well. So that'd be another thing you could point to.
Yeah, absolutely. And God has to execute justice and judgment. Otherwise, he's belittling and devaluing his glory and everything else that he is. So if he doesn't, he's unworthy of being God.
Yeah, his world, the world that he created, the world that he intended for us to inhabit, can't happen as long as the rebellion happens. The way I've talked about this for years, and it's made the best sense for me, the most sense to me, and that's why it's just always on my mind. If gangs went across the street and took over the neighborhood, what would happen to my life?
Chaos.
Yeah. So
bad.
And the only way for life to return, for quality of life to return, would be if that injustice is stopped. The only way for that to occur is the issue we have in these judgment texts, I think, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Just from a creation standpoint, out of disorder, right? Like God creates order. And when things fall into disorder, it's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
So good. That was helpful. Because, I just think as readers of the scriptures, when we come across passages like that, more and more the church, globally and in the American church, it just wants to just shy away from those things and not address them. So it's God's word. All right, let's jump into some Christmas/Advent stuff and traditions. When we talked on Sunday about the importance of remembering Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And man, just in the Christmas season, I was talking to the young adult group about it a little bit. The two, I don't think I mentioned this in the sermon, but the two religious Christian holidays in the American calendar, like the big ones, Christmas and Easter, I think more than any other holiday, they've lost their real, center. And so for us as Christians, man, Christmas better be for us, for our souls, a Christian holiday and not an American holiday. So we talked about some of the dangers, the gifts, the traditions, the songs, the busyness, the Scrooge syndrome. So I'm just going to float this out to you. Are any of those or something else, like something that you battle in the Christmas season? Like what for you is a hard one? And then how do you combat that? What are some things that keep you focused on Christ?
Yeah, I think for us, for the work that we do, one of the dangers is prepping for services and not being a worshiper. I think that's that's unique to us, not necessarily to you, but I could see Jason. I could see Jason struggling with this a little bit too, because he works so hard for that Sunday, and the other people around him working so hard to make that service full and worshipful. I think it's easy for me to get lost in all of the, preparing for Christmas Eve and knowing that it's Christmas Eve, but we're going to be here.
Yeah.
And so serving as opposed to worshiping. And I'd like to be able to do both. I'd like to serve and worship at the same time. So that would be one of the hard, Lord, help me serve and worship. Help me not just serve and forget about you, but that would be kind of one of the ones for me. I don't know about the list itself, but for me, but that's one that's
well. We have a lot of folks who they're not planning the service, but they're contributing, or on like a Sunday morning, it's their opportunity in Sunday school to teach or to whatever it is.
They're busy.
Wednesday nights, I know there's a lot going on that is Christmas oriented, and it can. I'd probably categorize that as like just the busyness of the season.
There you go.
There's extra things.
So it does fit in there.
Yeah, in some ways, whether you like it or not.
No, it does.
But it's just, there's a lot of extra things. And I think for so many of us, even throughout the year, church can become something that's just another thing to, do and check off. And we get into like a mindless routine of it. And we can lose sight of the worship that we're called to.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you if it's okay too.
Sure.
Like verse 5, I just scrolled there a little bit just to find verse 5. If I forget you, O Jerusalem, if I do not set Jerusalem above my highest joy. So what was your sort of primary definition of that, or understanding or meaning of Jerusalem? For them, it was the capital.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember kind of what you said in those minutes, but I know it was the capital city of Israel.
Yeah, it probably wasn't minutes. It was probably less than a minute. But
Was it?
just
Okay.
the symbolic things, everything that Jerusalem meant, God's presence, the things that happened there, in the temple, the holidays and feasts, that they journeyed back to Jerusalem, and the significance of it.
Yeah, and so I think, and that was helpful that was a part of that. I think a part of that psalm that was pretty critical, where, especially where you were dealing with the end of verse 6. If I do not set Jerusalem above my highest joy, and you made strong reference to, let's keep Jesus higher than any of our other joys, and so I think being in Advent, working toward Christmas. I think for me is I like to keep the thought of kingship, the what child is this, thinking of some of these carols. I'm just, focused on here you've got the capital. If I could picture back in the Old Testament times, King David and what it was like to be in his kingdom, to be to be serving under him, but enjoying all of what that kingdom offered because of God's presence and power evident for his people. So I think, trying to stay focused on the kingship of Christ, and what his kingdom should look like. How should I be acting as a citizen? That kind of stuff maybe would be that kind of help me stay away from that. I'm serving, but I'm not worshiping. This is about the King. This is about my King and my God. And that is kind of a way for me to try to stay away from, maybe some of what you want us to avoid.
Right. Just the American things that come along.
Yeah.
Get kind of attached to Christmas.
Yeah.
I think for me, like personality wise, like that O Come, Emmanuel song just resonates with me. But as you celebrate Advent, right, it has a different feel to it than Christmas. But then on the flip side, if I'm too focused on the exile, tone to Advent, then I can lose sight of should be a joyful time, a time to celebrate the good that has happened.
Yeah.
And so for some folks who, they tend to think that way, we want to make sure we're balanced there. And then folks who are on the flip side, because there's definitely times where you're excited and there's something coming up and you're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But I think the danger then for me is to let those good things that I enjoy become the higher than Jerusalem,
highest
joy. And they kind of usurp God's place in my life, and my joy is found in that thing, whether it's the meal or family time or sitting around the tree and opening gifts or whatever. And I need to balance that out too. Just keep my focus.
Yeah, on Sunday, I think you did a great job with that balance, because I could, while you were talking, I was in my mind, I was seeing you up front where you were on one side saying, here's one extreme, here's the other extreme.
Yeah.
So I think that's helpful to try to stay in that balance, because Advent is looking back, for us, is looking back to the birth, the first arrival. It is looking forward to the second arrival. So we've got great hope and joy coming, but we also look back with some joy too, but we are still waiting. And, you might be one, but we have a lot of parishioners in the faith family that they're going through difficult times that they know they're in exile. I mean, they can feel it. And, even today when I headed home for lunch, one of my neighbors was outside beside the road. And so I stopped, rolled down the window, and he was telling me he's waiting on a knee replacement surgery. I think he's in his late 70s. I think he's 78. So he's in his late 70s, waiting for his left knee to have knee replacement. And after a few minutes of chatting, I looked at him, I said, "We need new bodies, don't we?" And he said, "Yeah, we do." I don't know where he stands with the Lord. He professes faith in Christ, but I don't know where that is at. Yeah. But, so some of, you might be one, and depending on where we're at in our world, we can sense that exile part of it, even though we've got great joy remembering that Christ has come. We've got great joy remembering that Christ is coming, second Advent. But in the middle, we're still elect exiles. Yeah. So there's a lot of brokenness, and we have it in our faith family, and we all battle it in different ways. Yeah,
that helps get me to my last question, and this is just a personal one, but here you are at this stage and season of life. You're an empty nester, right? Okay. I know sometimes empty nesters go in and out of empty nesting.
Yeah, that happens.
But what are some things that you and Michelle do in this stage and season of life that's meaningful for you? Just in this Christmas season, anything in particular?
I think for us, I think a lot of us would say at our stage that these family gatherings for us are really critical, and our prayers are often, "Lord, would you help us be a strong influence in our family?" Which is weird, because when you're an empty nester, your family basically is gone.
Right.
They're gone in the sense they're not residing with you, but trying to pray for effectiveness in just, having life-giving words for family and wisdom to know what to say, what not to say, which seems like the what not to say is as much a need as anything when your children are older. And so when you're dealing with children and grandchildren, I think that, preparing for these family gatherings it's a really big deal.
Yeah. Take good advantage of the opportunity you have.
Oh yeah. So, we're looking forward to, this coming Saturday, for instance, we'll be, like a lot of families, we'll be together at some point. So that would probably be, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. I sense the intentionality, in your heart there, both in prayers.
Yeah.
Consistently, but then in the times you're with them, you'll see them over the holidays.
It's weird. I mean, and you may know this, it is so weird. You have just limited time with your family when they're grown. So what are the ways in which, parents and grandparents of adult children and grandchildren, what are the ways in which you can impact the kingdom? That's a real concern.
Yeah.
Later in life, as much as it is at your stage where you've got your family all together and you're pouring yourself into your family. And
and we're at a season now for our family where, for those of you who don't know, like we went from, most of you probably wouldn't, but winter was always a very slow time for us because we didn't have any activities. And within the last 2 years, 3 of our kids picked up winter sports.
Oh, yeah.
So it's busier than ever. And we kind of have our, rules and limits for our kids.
Yeah.
But they're within their bounds here. And so winter's a very busy season for us. So when our kids were younger, it was easier to work through an Advent devotional or an Advent calendar and read a verse, every night. But now the meal times are either shorter or they happen less often, but we still try and we picked up one of those Paul David Tripp devotionals and we're doing our best to read through that and, make it a priority just because I think those habits shape our home and our kids. And I mean, there's definitely some room for us to grow. And I think at this particular point, it's Rebecca and I have had to evaluate what are we doing now that our kids are in this phase, and there's always that kind of adjusting along the way. So
no doubt,
it's slightly different for us, but we're working through it. So good. Okay, that's all I got for today. No more jokes either. So
good.
You're welcome.
You did a good job on Sunday too. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a great service.
Yeah, all around it was encouraging. Choir did great.
Choir, instrumentalist, everybody worked so hard. You did.
There's a lot going on.
Even Austin, I guess, wouldn't you say?
I'd say Catherine did really well.
Catherine did great.
That was really good to hear.
There were a lot of people fighting tears during that.
Yeah, that's so
just meant a lot to everybody.
Yeah. It was good. I was really glad to hear from her.
That was a great idea. You had to get her up there.
Oh no, it's what God's doing there at the school.
Yeah.
So good. All right, Randy, thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for the podcast, you can email them in to podcast@cbcmj.com. We're always happy to receive them. We'll work through them as best we can. And that's the goal. So thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
All right. Love you guys, and we'll see you on Sunday. Thanks again for joining us on today's episode. And remember, our Sunday sermons are meant to lead us to a life of worship beyond Sunday.